Welcome to the Dean's Roundtable podcast series with Bridget Johnson. Each month, we bring you game-changing conversations about K-12 education and leadership. Join us as top educators, field experts, and administrators share actionable strategies to transform your school community. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Dean's Roundtable podcast. I'm Bridget Johnson, the founder of the Dean's Roundtable, a space created for student professionals to connect, learn, share, and grow together. Our guest today is Derek Newton, a leading voice on academic integrity in education and publisher of The Cheat Sheet, a must-read newsletter providing essential insights on academic misconduct and integrity issues in education. With 2 decades of experience in government and politics, Derek brings a unique perspective as a media and PR strategist to the critical conversations around educational ethics. His expertise has earned him recognition as one of the 10 education influencers to follow in 2024. Derek's penetrating analysis on academic integrity has appeared in prestigious publications, including The Washington Post, The Atlantic, Forbes, where he serves as a contributing writer, NBC News, and Money Magazine. Beyond his writing, Derek is a sought-after keynote speaker and panel participant who has shared his insights with education leaders worldwide. His ability to moderate complex discussions on assessment and integrity has made him a valued voice in educational forums across the globe. Please welcome to the show, Derek Newton. Derek, so happy to have you today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and just jump in and get started. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, happy to. Let me start by saying thank you for talking about this and for having me on. And I absolutely must get you to do all my introductions for absolutely everything.
Happy to do so.
Now joining us at dinner. Derek Newton. Yeah, all that stuff. I love it. My journey, I started, I had a lengthy career in politics and government, and that sort of transitioned into writing. Mm-hmm. And most of the writing I did early on, still do, is on education. And in covering education, I came upon some advertisements, honestly, for people who would take online classes for you. That you just gave them your information and they would log on and pretend to be you. And it was so much money if you wanted an A, a little less money if you would take a B, a little less money if you just wanted a C. And I really sort of couldn't believe that this was a thing. And so I pitched the story to The Atlantic, and they were interested. And I wrote that story and sort of just fell down the rabbit hole and have never really come up. The more I researched and read and understood about what was going on in academia related to academic misconduct and cheating, the more I realized I didn't know, and the more I realized I should know, and then do my part to share it. So that's how I got here, the shorter version.
Cool. And so, what I wonder as you were talking and talking about the online courses and basically paying for a grade, how did we get here? Like, how did we end up in this space, and why is it okay?
Well, the last part's easier to answer. In my view, it's not okay. Okay. But we got here because cheating has always sort of existed, right? It's human nature to look for shortcuts. People don't like to do hard stuff. If there's a way to cut, 10 minutes off your commute, you're going to do it. This is just the way we are set up. And you can go back, the first sort of standardized exams that anybody knows about were in China, thousands of years ago, civil service exams. And then the penalty for cheating on these exams was death. You were put to death if you cheated the civil service exams in China thousands of years ago. And there are records of people being executed for cheating. So this is not a new thing. What is new now is online and remote education. Mm-hmm. And this has sort of expanded the distance between educator and student. And there's a lot of research that shows that the greater that distance, whether it's real or perceived, a student isn't engaged, they're disconnected, they feel like they don't want to be there. That's a perceived distance. or a literal distance. If you are teaching a class in Washington D.C. and your student is in Qatar, that's a literal distance,
It
and
is.
that invites opportunity for misconduct. The inverse is the easier one to understand. If you're sitting 2 feet in front of me and I'm watching you, pretty difficult to cheat.
Yep, for
So,
sure.
so the more we expand that distance, the more opportunity there is. I think there are other factors too. I think we've, in the last 10 or 15 years, unfortunately, in my view, come to view education as a commodity, something that you buy, and the
Uh-huh.
credential is what you want. You're not. More and more people are less interested in the learning journey than they are about getting the grade, getting the degree. And I think that moves to it. If you have a situation where you're in school to get the degree, then what you do to get there matters less. If you're in there to actually learn, then you wouldn't cheat because you're not learning when you're cheating. So
Right.
depends on your destination. I think there are lots of these factors that come together.
Fair enough. And so the reason why, I didn't really kind of introduce the topic, so to speak, we talked more about kind of who you are in the introduction. But the reason why I really was interested in having this discussion with you today is that so many schools are just struggling with AI policy in general, AI
Hmm.
policy for students, AI policy for the faculty and staff, and like not sure, like kind of what to do. It's ever changing, right? But also it's not something that you can just say we'll deal with it later. It's here now. It is so in our face, and we
Hmm.
need to do something about it. We need to say something. And so I really enjoyed the first discussion we had about this, and we were kind of going back and forth and wrestling with some things because I have a, I don't know, particular idea of kind of what should happen or how schools should kind of think about these things. And you were slightly different, and so I love that tension there and wanted to talk about it. And so,
Hmm.
thinking about one of the things in particular was just the departmental approach to AI policy rather than a blanket rule across an entire institution. Why do you think that's important?
Uh, my sense is that's important because speaking specifically about AI,
Hmm.
it has different uses, I think, depending on different subject matters. If it's physics or, say, calculus or some sort of math, uh, it has value, right? It could tell you
Yep.
the answer, but it's a different sort of value if it's English composition or English literature. What it can do for the student, good and possibly bad, are different. And so, you may have one set of policies that says we can use AI or AI is permissible in physics,
Hmm.
and it may be a different use case that's permissible in, a Western Civ or a history course. Or it may even vary by assignment. Look, I don't mind if you use AI while you're doing the reading, maybe to summarize or maybe to
Hmm.
rephrase for you, especially if you have language or reading challenges. But when it comes to your writing, that's a no-no, right?
Right.
I want to know what you think, and I want to know what your level of communication and writing is. So it may be, I'm totally fine with it, at least to me, varying not only course to course, subject to subject, but even assignment to assignment, as long as the instructor is like beyond clear with
Oh
what
well.
is. Yeah, and I know that's a challenge. I get it, because also students, benefit from the lack of clarity. So if they're unsure or they
Hmm.
intend to try to use as much wiggle room as they can get, ambiguity that they think is there helps them. So it's
Yeah.
difficult to reach that standard, but as long as you are do everything you can be to be clear about what is and isn't in bounds,
Right.
I think it can vary. Now I realize for deans that's a nightmare. I get it. It is. But I think it's more difficult to have a uniform policy institutionally, because there may be use cases where it's very detrimental
Sure.
in one area and not in another, or very helpful. So on.
Yeah, and that's fair. And that's, when we first kind of jumped into this conversation, um, when you said, oh, it should vary by, kind of every teacher can have their own policy. And I was like, whoa, can we can we talk about this a little bit? Because I do feel like there should be some flexibility there. And I love the idea of, department having departmental policies, but that also requires the departments to really have some conversations and really be communicating with each other about what they're using, how they're using it, and when they're using it. You can't just say, okay, this department, go figure it out yourselves. I think there should be some sort of kind of standard and some checking up on, like, revisit, how's this working? Is this policy working the way you thought it would? And do we need to revise it in any way? Because absolutely, as soon as you give kids a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of daylight, they are all over it. And so being really clear and also understanding yourself what that really means is super important. Um,
Agreed.
can you elaborate a little bit on kind of what effective departmental collaboration around AI might look like in practice?
I'm not. I think it's important to say I'm not a teacher, and
That's fair. Yep.
I'm not a course designer. So, mine are sort of outside opinions, which people who have actually been trained in this space and do it every day, will have probably better insight, I would think. But I think it's just a matter of coming together and saying, what are the teaching strategies we're using now? What are the assessment strategies we're relying on to measure those learning gains? And where do we feel strongly that AI is going to dilute or cloud or completely subvert those things? And in which case we should draw a line and say no. In which case, where do we think AI can be very helpful in enhancing our learning journey or even our assessment journey? And we should say, okay, let's not only allow that, let's maybe find ways to encourage it. Again, I think, to me, and you laughed at this, but to me the key point is being clear about it. In this class, you can use it this way, and you cannot use it that way. And does that put a burden on students? Yes, it does. But I would argue maybe that, when you start adulting, life is complicated, right? You can
It
pay
is.
you can pay your water bill with a debit card, but you can't pay your electric bill. That's got to be a deposit out of your checking account, right? The rules are different for different things, and I wish you could pay every bill the same way.
Right.
But we don't. It's just not that convenient when you're in the world. So, does that is that inconvenient? Yeah, but I think it's unfortunately pretty standard.
It is pretty standard, and good life lessons, right? I like that analogy, and another analogy that you made that I actually really enjoy was the sports analogy comparing AI to steroids. And so, how do you see this comparison resonating with educators and students?
Uh, I first of all, I stole that analogy.
Fair
It
enough.
wasn't original to me. Since we're going to talk about citing sources,
Fair.
want to be clear. I'm not that creative on that one. But I think the analogy works, and that is if you are in an academic setting where you are focused on measuring outcomes, performance, like how good is the essay? What is the quality of writing? How well does it convey the subject matter? How well does it address the topic? AI is going to really, really cloud that.
Yep.
Similarly, that if you were having a track and field competition and you allowed some of the participants to use steroids, performance-enhancing drugs, it would really, really cloud what you're measuring. You may shatter a whole bunch of world records, but I'm not sure what you've learned. Did you
Right.
measure skill? Did you measure preparation? Or did you measure who could use the drugs best? Those are three different things, and I think it's very clear to understand what you're trying to measure. And if you are interested in ability and preparation, you probably have to disallow the drugs. Otherwise, you won't know.
Right.
And so I think that, to me, it holds in academia. Is it more efficient? Yes. Is it faster? Yes. Is it shortcutting the work? Absolutely. And in certain circumstances, that can be great. I have a completely different view of AI in the workplace than
Sure.
I do in school.
Yep.
Somebody who can cut down their work time on projects by 40, 60%, 90%, great, go for it. If that's okay with your company and your boss, who am I to tell you not to use it? That's fine. But I think in academic settings where we're trying to assess and scale up, I think it has the potential to cloud just about everything immediately.
Fair enough. And so, we've talked a lot about the students, and you just mentioned kind of adults in the workplace, but what about the teachers, and how they could be potentially using AI? What are your thoughts there?
I've, I haven't spent as much time on that side of the question, but some
Okay.
people that I know are thoughtful and listen to think AI has a potential to be a tremendous efficiency lever for teaching in terms of pulling in resources, converting resources, right? Like converting video to a quiz, a text quiz, pretty much instantly.
Yep.
Things of this nature, helping to, you know, draw for me a 12-week lesson plan that hits these 6 learning objectives. And if you've taught this subject before, which we would hope, and if you're a subject matter expert, which we would hope, what it
Right.
tells you is going to be informative, but you're going to be able to say, no, I don't want to do that. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. That ties into something I already had in mind, right? You can incorporate it within what you want to do and what you understand, and probably get a better product, and probably get a better product faster. The challenge, of course, back to academia is if you don't have that expertise and you're not a subject matter expert, you're not in a position to reject what the AI says or
Right.
meld it with what you think or say, yeah, that is better than what I thought. I think it just requires that skill set in a professional setting, including teaching.
No, absolutely. And so, what sort of guardrails do you think you can put in place in that respect?
For
Or
teachers,
do you? Uh huh.
I just, I would be just personally less
Yep.
worried about those guardrails. I think as long as
Okay.
there's oversight from program chair or program level,
Uh
and
huh.
some oversight from the deans related to quality, because I think that's just good business professional conduct. I mean, if AI is writing your lesson plans and doing your grading entirely, I think there's a conversation needs to happen about why you're getting the paycheck.
Fair.
So that's all. But I think as long as there's oversight, I don't think, to me, there's no line. If 60% of your work is AI, I'm fine with that as long as you can say, look, this is why I made this decision. This
Uh
is
huh.
why this makes sense for my students in my class. Sounds good to me. I mean, I know you do too. I try to trust teachers. I try
Right.
to, let them run their classes the way they think they should be run and meet the learning objectives in the way they think they should get there. And if that includes a heavy use of AI, I'm certainly not going to second guess it.
Okay. Fair enough. And so, one of the other things that we talked about that I was fascinated by was your Chronicle of Higher Ed story research,
Hmm.
and the fact that you did this research and wanted to speak with students about academic integrity, and they were reluctant. Not only reluctant, I don't think no one kind
Yeah,
of
I
took the
couldn't.
bait. No one wanted to have the conversation. Talk about that a little bit.
Happy to, yeah. And to be clear, this wasn't an article that ran in Chronicle of Higher Education. This was
Uh
an
huh.
article I was writing for them, which ultimately didn't run
Right.
because I couldn't get students on the record. The publisher, perfectly reasonably, I think, wanted to hear from students in the story, and I just couldn't get any students on the record. That's two things to say about that. I've written about academic integrity for almost 10 years now. It's
Mm-hmm.
very, very difficult to get a student to talk about this subject because the behavior is illicit.
Right.
And why would you go on the record, especially, if you use your full name and admit to cheating? It's just not a smart thing to do. Most of the stories that write about it, including some of the ones I've written, use pseudonyms to help give some anonymity so you can get a more clear answer. But even then, it's tough to get students to talk. Usually 9 times, well, that's too much. 7 times out of 10, when I get students to talk to me, the answer is this, or something very similar to this, very close to this. I don't cheat, but all my classmates are cheating. And let me tell you how they're cheating, right? Very detailed descriptions of how their friends are doing it, which is fine. You can kind of understand what that is. But in this
Right.
story specifically, the story was about how students were increasingly hiring attorneys to fight academic misconduct allegations, largely at the collegiate at the higher ed level, but also K-12, and how it was becoming increasingly litigious, becoming increasingly adversarial, the entire process, slowing down, gunking up the works, because if there's an attorney on the other side, usually the deans are at least advising the general counsel,
right,
that that's happening, and it just slows the process down. So I wanted to write about that, and I interviewed several attorneys who do nothing but academic malpractice cases these days, full-time practice of law, and they were very, very happy to tell me about the cases they were handling and about the successful outcomes that they had achieved for their student clients, because it was free advertising to them. They were essentially validating their services. But where it snagged from a journalism perspective was almost always these favorable settlements included anonymity, right? That the students got in the process a no mark on their transcript, nothing held against them. And so it was very difficult to get the students to come out and say, yeah, even though I've been completely cleared of this and no one knows I was involved, let me describe it to you. It turned out to be really problematic, because it put them in the situation of, I just spent 5 months of my life and $15,000 of my parents' money to get through this. I really don't have any interest in discussing it in the newspaper. Which I get. It's a perfectly reasonable place to be.
Fair enough.
But it turned out to be exceptionally difficult to pull off, and ultimately I couldn't get the story published because I didn't have that piece.
This idea of, what did you call them? Misconduct, academic. What was the title of the lawyers, or what's their kind of lane?
Academic misconduct. If you just go to Google and you type in academic misconduct, probably 6 of the top 10 results from Google will be attorneys. If you put academic misconduct attorney or lawyer in there, you'll see dozens, maybe 100 attorneys who, some, like I say, this is their exclusive area of practice.
Which blows my mind.
All they do is represent students accused of misconduct.
I did not know that was a thing until we had that discussion. And, that really makes, for deans, life so much more difficult, as you mentioned, but also for the teachers. That's one piece that we discussed a little bit as well. Like, do you want to go through this process? Do you want to bring this student forward knowing that this is a possibility? And so how does that cloud the judgment of the teachers and the deans that are involved in mitigating all this? It's just...
The academic integrity system is replete with disincentives at every single step. From a teacher to look for it, because if you look for it, you're probably scared you're going to find it, and once you find it, you have
got to do something about it.
You got to contemplate what to do about it, and there are all kinds of disincentives stacked up on that. And then at the school level, the dean level, same thing. Most of your audience may find this interesting. The lawyers were very candid with me during these interviews to say what they ask for and what they usually get is basically the stickball equivalent. When you hit it and it goes up on somebody's roof, you just get a do-over. They just call do-over, right? That's what they go to the dean and say, look, we could fight this, we could threaten to sue you, we could drag this out forever, but what if we just pretend that this student never took this class and that this whole case never existed, and they just get to retake the class with a different professor, and we'll start fresh. And if you're a dean, I don't know. That seems like a decent deal, frankly, to just make it go away. And the attorneys are happy to get that for their clients. I don't know if I told you the online music instructor.
Yes, you did tell me that story. That just blew my mind. So many of these stories about how, just for a myriad of reasons why you just kind of turn the blind eye to cheating and let it kind of be what it be. I don't know how else to say. Just let it kind of just do its thing, only because either you don't want to kind of take on the extra work or the stress that's added when you bring these forward, or you don't want a bad rating as a teacher. Bad ratings can, turn into all sorts of things, right?
I agree. And I think that's an underappreciated element of the conversation, the ratings, the student evaluations. Many schools review those, take them seriously. Might link them to promotions or retention or future opportunities. There is very good research that shows that when a teacher enforces academic integrity policies, their ratings go down as much as 40%. So, if you're a teacher, if you're an instructor, you've got to make some life choices here. Again, these are fair, and I'm very sympathetic. I view letting cheating go is the wrong answer.
Right.
But many times turning in these cases is a bad answer. So you're just stuck between a bad choice and what I think is the wrong choice, and that's just a terrible place to be.
It is. I agree. It is a terrible place to be. So when we think about consequences, because, do-over, I don't think is, in my opinion, really a consequence. I guess it's more of your time. You can't kind of move on to the next course. But what do we think in this world, in this age where, AI is not going away. You need to be using it in certain effect, and you need to know how to use it, because we actually need to be kind of bringing up or raising a crop of students who can be effective kind of when they are done with school, to be able to compete with students across the world, right? So what's an effective consequence for someone who fails to properly use or cite AI in their work? Do you think?
I think it depends on the course and how the tool was used and what the rules were, how clear those were. But I think if it were me, if I was an instructor and I had this issue, the first thing I would do is say, okay, this use of this tool in this way, as we discussed, is not allowed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reassess you. We're going to have an oral examination, or you're going to come in and write by hand in front of me the answer to these questions. So I can then know what you know, because what you turned in I can't give you a grade on that. It doesn't help me assess you so that I can help you learn more. I just don't know what you know if that's what you're turning in. So I would do that. And if the problem if that didn't solve the problem, because I think it might, the student is not then getting a shortcut. They're being forced to do more work. They know I'm checking. They know I'm going to find it. So hopefully the next time there's an opportunity, they say, why am I wasting my time with this AI? I'm going to get caught again, and I'm going to have to handwrite it. I should just do it.
Do the work the first
right
time.
Way the first time, right? Hopefully that works. But the second time, if with the same student, I might say, we had this issue already, and now I'm forced to exert some sort of more stringent consequence, and that would be a 0 on the assignment, maybe an overall grade reduction. If it's egregious, maybe a referral to some sort of disciplinary process, maybe all 3. It would just depend. And certainly I would probably run out of patience by the time the third example hit. I would just be done, because I would have said, I've done what I think I can do here. This is a problem that I'm no longer capable of addressing here. Interesting to share. This didn't come up, I think, in our pre-conversation, but it's related to penalties. I was really taken with a professor that I interviewed years ago, who, when he found academic misconduct on his assessments, his penalty was a negative grade value. So if an assignment was worth 50 points and he determined that there was misconduct, you didn't get a 0, you got a negative 50.
Oh.
And his logic was a 0 wasn't the penalty, because if you were unprepared, or you thought you were going to fail anyway coming into the assessment, you hadn't studied, you have no idea, you didn't do the reading, you're walking into a firing squad.
Right.
Cheating is the logical outcome to try to get by. And if you get caught and you get a 0, you're like, well, I would have failed anyway, right? So it wasn't, in his view, it wasn't a penalty. So he set up a negative grade penalty.
Wow.
And anecdotally, he found that it cut cheating. Because he was then able to very logically explain to students, take the 0.
Right.
Right. This becomes now your best option.
Yeah, to take the 0. And who would have thought, right?
Yeah. And another interesting thing I don't know how much of your listenership is teachers versus deans. I suspect, given the title, it's probably mostly deans. But another policy I thought was very, very interesting was some instructors had tested a take-back policy. I don't know if we talked about this.
No, we didn't talk about that.
where they said that any assignment that was turned in for assessment, I think they gave them 48 hours.
Oh, to take it back.
To take it back within 48 hours, and they would get a 0, but there would be no inquiry as to whether there was misconduct. There would be no proceedings. There would be no punishments beyond the 0, because they had theorized that students get in bad spots and they feel pressure and they're not prepared. And like I said, in that situation, cheating can feel like the logical thing to do.
Right.
And then afterwards, you sit on it, you sleep on it, maybe you reconsider.
You're like,
you're worried about getting caught. You're like, oh, that was a bad choice I made. You could come and then just say, hey, I want to use that take back thing, and pull your assignment. You get the 0, like you never turned it in, but that's the end of it. And what I found fascinating about this, about the studies they ran, because they piloted this in some of their classes, was they had fully 10% of all assignments taken back.
Okay.
And so they viewed this as a real win, because these were cases that they would have been forced to deal with misconduct, more than likely.
Right.
And then have to have conversations with the students, file the cases. The students would have been on a path that they didn't want to be on. And all this just got avoided because the students decided to take the 0, which, and also I think it speaks to like some sort of level of responsibility and awareness, which is good. It's a maturity thing. If you can say, I messed that up.
I messed up.
I'll take this because I deserve that. And let's move on to tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a very interesting. I hadn't heard about the takebacks. I want to go back. We were talking about lawyers, and we're talking about students hiring lawyers and getting them kind of do-overs, for lack of a better term. But I do want to talk about that case in Massachusetts where a student sued over AI accusations, and they did not win. And I just wonder, like, how often does that happen? Because it sounds like more often than not, it's the do-over. But I want to talk about this case in particular and why you think the school was able to come out on top.
There's a legal answer, and then there's a sort of a real-world answer. In reading the case, and I'm not a lawyer, let me say, in addition to not being a teacher, I'm also not a lawyer. The ruling explained that the judge had written that courts have basically from the beginning of schooling deferred school policy to schools, that they are exceptionally reluctant to overturn decisions of educators or administrators in how they run their school. It's bad policy. It makes a mess. And so absent some clear violation of rights or some just egregious error or inconsistency, they generally leave a school decision alone. And the school had investigated the case, had given an appeal process internally, and found that they were going to find the student had committed academic misconduct with AI. And the judge basically said, look, I've reviewed this. There's nothing here that sticks out to me as a problem with the process.
Right.
And interestingly, the student never said that they didn't cheat. The student never contested the getting caught or the or the facts of the case. They contested that the punishment was too harsh.
Got it.
And that they wanted the permanent mark removed from the transcript, and they wanted the grade deduction mitigated because the parents and the student had said that it would affect their applications to colleges, which is fair. I'm sure it will.
Oh yeah,
but
true statement.
Yeah, in the real world side of that case, it was obvious the student used AI on an AP history assignment. The student's paper cited a work by Doe, Jane. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, and so I being the cynical jerk that I can occasionally be in the newsletter, said, I really do feel bad that this may impact his application to elite schools. But on the other hand, I'm sure Harvard just can't wait to admit somebody who cites Doe, Jane in their history paper. I mean, this is just bad, scholarship.
Right.
And if you thought this was going to work, then maybe a timeout penalty is in order.
Maybe a timeout. So you talk about citation. What does an AI citation look like? I don't even know if I know that.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a consistency. But generally, what I've seen teachers ask for and accept is that citation would be, the type of AI. Was it ChatGPT? Was it Claude? What systems did you use?
Okay.
When did you access it? ChatGPT accessed Tuesday, at 11:46 Eastern, and then it includes the prompt.
Got it.
What did I ask it?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then I use that response here.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
So thinking about training or resources, are there things that you would recommend for teachers or folks in general who are navigating AI use?
To learn about it, I think there's very little that's better than just using it.
Okay.
I would say at every level, if you're giving assessments, I would be asking ChatGPT and Claude and these other servers the assessment questions.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any knowledge, by the way, of what they said yesterday, which is why they make mistakes. They don't keep track of the responses. So if you ask it the same question 4 times, you may get 4 different answers, which is sort of cute and charming if you're looking for some sort of quasi-human engagement. But it does have a predictable writing cadence, and it does have a predictable writing style.
Okay.
The answer itself may vary, but if you read it enough, and you're close reading, and you're paying attention, and you're looking for it, that'll help you spot it.
Yeah.
So familiarity with what the tool does and does well. Obviously, wrong answers are a big tip.
Right.
And then there are as you learn. I stole this from a professor that I heard speak over the weekend. But as has been the case for a while, if you get a student who turns in a paper on Dr. Martin Luther Ruler, you probably have some sort of problem. That they took it to a paraphrase engine and put it in and just accepted what the computer told them. So there are ways to have your eyes open and be like, yeah, that's probably not what it seems to be.
Right.
Yeah, and there are many also AI detection tools out there. Which can be used, and I recommend people using them, not because they're perfect, they're not,
Right.
not because they don't make mistakes, they can make mistakes, but because were I a teacher, again, I would want as much information as I could get.
Sure.
And so in making this decision, and what I do sort of suggest is how I would use the tool, especially in a K-12 setting. Is I would read the assignments, read the answers, the student submissions first, and then sort of set aside however many I had spidey senses about, or had questions, or I would be like, this doesn't feel like it's, Brenda's work.
Yeah.
This feels off. I've seen her writing 2 or 3 times. This just feels different. Could be me, could be her, could be nothing at all. And then I would take those that I had some suspicion about and check them in an AI detector, because I would feel like if I felt uneasy about it and it came back 90% on a credible AI detector, now I probably want to have a conversation.
Right.
And I want to say, hey, Brenda, can we talk about your paper here? It didn't feel like your writing. They were, look at this and this and this. This doesn't.
Right.
This feels weird. And then I ran it through, Turnitin or Pangram or one of the better ones, and it came back 90%. So I don't want to say you used AI, but can we talk about what happened? Can you walk me through this? Let's figure this out.
Yeah. Okay. So talking about the Brendas of the world, how do you think students can play a role or should play a role in helping develop AI policies at their schools?
I think they tend to be well ahead of their teachers on what technologies and tools are available, and how their peers are using them. So I think it's difficult to get students at every level to sort of, tell on their peers and classmates, not by name.
Right.
But maybe if you can get them in a setting that is, anonymous for them to say, but tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
Where are you finding, or your classmates finding, shortcut tools and answer tools? And some of them may be great. The professors or the teachers may go over there and go, wow, this is really cool. I want students to use this. And others may be, this is really bad. We need to make sure that we are looking for this and find ways to find it and tell students not to use it. But I would be asking students, it probably happens in the K-12 system as much, maybe more. But one of the things that happens now in higher ed on the first day of a class, like literally within the first 10 minutes, one or two students set up group chats on WhatsApp or on one of the social networks for that class. And 70, 80, maybe 100% of the students join that chat so they can talk about the professor, or they can talk about, the assignment, whatever it is they want to talk about. But I think by and large, teachers and professors are completely unaware that this happens. And these chats are sort of perfect breeding grounds for misconduct. Because they share answers, they share, go over here to Quillbot and it'll rewrite your essay. Right. And so this is how tools and tricks get shared among the students. And I knew a professor, well, I still know him. I don't know why I used that verb tense. But I interviewed a professor who said one of the first things he did was get the group chat name and joined.
No. Well, there you go.
Yeah, and it was, it wasn't like hiding, like it was his initials, something in the thing, but was able to then just basically sit there and watch what the students were talking. And he said it was really informative from a teaching cue perspective to see what students got hung up on, what they thought was a waste of time. It made him a better teacher, but also he was able to really, really react quickly to when cheating sort of came up, and to know exactly what was going on. And in a few cases, he had to, because he was in the chat, he had to invalidate entire tests.
Oh, wow.
And say, look, I know that this test has circulated on the group chat for the last 3 days, and you've been going to Chegg and Course Hero, so I'm sorry to have wasted all your time. We're not doing that test. We're doing this instead.
Well, there you go.
But you can't do that if you don't know. And so that was a long answer to, I would, whether you join a group chat or whether you have some students you can pull aside formally or informally, I'd just ask them what's going on. What are the students doing?
Yeah, and that's a great segue into my next question. Like, how do you respond to administrators who are hesitant to strongly enforce academic integrity policies?
Yeah, I think I understand. The disincentives apply to administrators just as heavily as they apply to teachers. I totally get that. These cases are expensive. They're time-consuming. They are confrontational. They carry risk of embarrassment for the university or for the school. It's all bad. I get it. But I think I advocate for being tough on it because there are two things that happen. The students, like I mentioned, talk to each other, and they know when somebody got caught and wasn't really punished. And so this takes away a deterrent factor in future cheating. So if you're looking to cut down on cheating, one of the best ways to deal with it is to be consistent and somewhat assertive in it. Yeah. There is a high likelihood you will get caught, and there is a high likelihood that you will not like the consequence. And so just know that happens. Right. And then I think one of the things that gets really overlooked is when administrators are more passive or more lenient or less willing to be hard on the rules, is how it sort of really demoralizes the teachers, because the emotional labor and investment it takes to initiate a case in the first place is quite high. Right. And so taking it to your dean or department chair, whoever is the person that it gets at, the academic integrity officer, probably ideally, and for nothing to happen, it sends a very clear message to the teacher that I shouldn't be putting myself in a position like this again. And so I just think it has a high risk of being detrimental to the relationship between administrator and teacher when you don't take the take the teacher's cases or complaints or whatever and act on them. And I also realize you can't do that 100% of the time, right? Teachers aren't 100% correct all the time. Like that.
Sure.
There are examples.
Human.
Yeah, there are examples where the evidence isn't going to be clean, or maybe there's exculpatory information, whatever. And that's just, welcome to the horrible life of an administrator. You're just going to have to explain that to your teacher and say, look,
right.
I couldn't do it here, and here's why. But I want you to keep your eyes open, and I want you to keep filing these cases, because when I can, I'm gonna be with you. This one I just couldn't.
Yeah, and that's so important. And one of the things you said is consistency, and that's something we talk about as deans. You have to be consistent. You can't get weary in enforcing the rules, because the one time you do, that's when people are like, oh well, fill in the blank as to why people think that someone didn't receive consequences, and it's
Right.
just it's a slippery slope.
And this is, and having, again, not being a lawyer, but having read the cases around academic integrity when there are lawsuits, this is the number one thing judges look for.
Yep.
If you are inconsistent in your application of punishments,
Yep.
if you are inconsistent in how you weigh evidence, like this time I'm
Yep.
going to believe the AI detector and this time I'm not going to believe it, now judges are much more inclined to tell you how you should have acted.
Should have done it in the first place, right?
Yeah, and so if you want to avoid that, the best thing you can do is have clear policy, have it written, and then follow it every single time. And if you do, based on what I've read, the judges are inclined to be like, look, I'm not the one who writes the policy, but as
Right.
long as there is one, and as long as they're following it, complain to somebody else.
There you go. I like that. And that's kind of, I usually ask for 3 takeaways at the end. And I think those are 3 good takeaways. But even I wasn't quite ready to wrap up yet, because I have one more question. And
Fire away.
just looking ahead, 5 years from now, how do you think educational approaches to AI will have evolved?
I think I'll sort of broaden that out, if I might, a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is technology inclusive of AI, but not limited to it. I think it's going to be increasingly more difficult to teach and give assessments online than it is already.
Okay.
I think the technology is too malicious, too common, and moving too quickly for schools to keep up with it and address it. I think AI as part of technology is going to really quickly force us to examine under what circumstances we have confidence in online education.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
As an aside, I was just writing about it this morning, so it's on my mind. The higher education regulator in Australia, the acronym for them is TEQESA, asked their members. It was a debate setting, so they're not shopping policy, but they had a conference and they asked for feedback from the room on whether online degrees should carry a designation saying they were online degrees.
Oh, interesting.
Because the regulator had lost faith that the online degree program assessments, exams, grades were secure, that they just couldn't secure them anymore. And if this was the case, did their colleges have an obligation to tell employers that this was a degree earned in this setting as opposed to that setting? This upset a lot of people. But I think that conversation is coming, and it's going to be driven a lot by technology that can do the work, and it's going to be increasingly difficult to catch.
Sure. Wow.
AI, I think, we're probably not going to be much different than we are now. The AI is going to get better. The technology that can catch it's going to get better, but it's going to lag by, week to 6 months before it can catch up.
Sure.
And we're going to have these gaps, and something's going to come out that's going to do it better. I don't know if you saw the video. There's a couple of them about what they call agentic AI or AI agents.
No, what's that?
Yeah, you're going to need to know about this. This is these are AI powered, software that can do things for you online without you even being there.
Oh, gee.
So it can take, in the example I could send you if you'd like, and maybe I don't know if you have a place to pass it along to your listeners, but a teacher was having to get a credential for his teacher recertification and professional development, and it was an online class. And he just told the agentic AI to take the class for him and take the test, and walked away from the computer.
No
Came
way.
back an hour later and got his certificate. So you don't have
that's
to click
scary.
anything. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to be present. It will read the material, answer the short answer questions, take the quiz, watch the video, take the quiz. It'll do the whole thing for you just by pressing, please do this for me. So that's what I'm saying. We're going to have to, that sort of teaching and learning environment, we're going to have to reconsider how we're doing that at a very, very big level.
For sure. Geesh, I wasn't ready for that one today, Derek. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
And that's what I was saying about it's just the march of technology generally that may or may not be AI.
Yeah.
You know, and I was speaking this last week at an academic integrity conference and showing them videos about how it's not AI in the way we think about it now, but how, you know, software can fix your eye gaze on camera. Have you seen that?
I think you mean when like you've taken a picture and you're not quite looking where you wanted to
Yeah.
look, and they can. Yes, I have
It can-
seen that.
And it can do it on video. So if you and I were talking on video, I could be looking on my phone to look up answers to the test, or I could be looking at notes in my lap, and the camera will correct my vision
Oh
to make
my
it look like I'm
gosh.
looking at the camera. Yeah. So, you know, even if you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to have an asynchronous course, I'm going to do it, you know, where I can see my students.
Yeah. Good luck.
Technology's pretty much already, if somebody wanted to manipulate that, it isn't difficult to do.
Yikes.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Sorry to be a downer.
Well, I was like, now that we've sufficiently scared everyone.
Yeah. And it's funny because I got this question over the weekend at the conference. You know, they were like, "Thank you for terrifying and depressing everyone.
Right.
Can you?
What fell swoop?
Is there any good news to share?" And so I'll maybe since we want to wrap up, this will be the good news. I think awareness of academic integrity is increasing rapidly.
Okay.
I think people are starting to look for it more often, take it more seriously, engage with it as something that needs attention.
Okay.
And you can't solve any problem unless you are looking at it and asking questions about it. So this is really good news. You know, it wasn't 6-7 years ago. No one talked about this at all.
Yeah, that's
It
fair.
just didn't exist in anybody's world. And it does now. And that's
Yeah.
real progress. And so I'm really happy about that. And that's going to be, if we're going to solve it, that's how we're going to solve it. More people are going to talk about it. More people are going to do podcasts about it. You know, people are going to ask questions and say, wow, what is this Chegg thing? How can I stop that?
Yeah.
Those sorts of things.
Yeah, you can't address it if you don't talk about it, right? If it's
Exactly
not
right.
kind of out in the open. So I do appreciate that. So that's a little bit of a silver lining, I
It
suppose.
is, yeah. It's hope. It's hope.
It's hope.
It is the sun breaking through the clouds, right? I mean, the people such as yourself are doing shows about it and talking to your peers and colleagues and others about it, and that is that's a leap forward in a very
Well-
short amount of time, and it's very good.
Well, we definitely have to start somewhere, right?
We do. We do.
So, Derek, this has been awesome, amazing. I love having conversation with you. I always learn something new every time we chat. If people want to reach out to you or want to kind of read what you're up to, how can they be in touch?
Yeah, happy to do it. The best thing to do probably is to find the newsletter. That's a Google if you Google the cheat sheet and Substack, because that's the host provider, that's the newsletter form. So
Okay.
if you Google cheat sheet Substack, you'll find it right away. It's free. There's no cost. Just sign up. It comes into your inbox twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I'm reachable through that. So if you sign
Awesome.
up, and you can just email me directly through the Substack platform, and that comes right into my inbox. And as long as you're nice, I'll respond.
Well, you were nice enough to respond to me, which I really appreciate. And
No,
so,
happy to do it.
again, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And as we close today, I just want to remind people that registration is now open for the Dean's Roundtable Annual Conference. The conference will be held June 23rd through 26th on the campus of New England Innovation Academy. We have an exciting lineup of speakers, and we hope to see you there. And as always, thanks for spending time with us on the Dean's Roundtable podcast. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dean's Roundtable podcast series. For those of you leading the charge in student life, if you're ready to rediscover what made you fall in love with this work in the first place, join us at the Dean's Roundtable Annual Conference. During these 4 transformative days, you'll connect with fellow deans, share game-changing ideas, and walk away with practical strategies you can use right now. Head to deansroundtable.org to learn more, and if you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Today's episode was hosted by Bridget Johnson in conversation with Derek Newton, produced and edited by Andrick Sigmund, and music by PremiumBeat.com. For any questions, contact information can be found in the episode description, and as always, thanks again for listening.